We're starting a new series, the Book of Ruth. And I'm excited about this series because this plays an important role in helping us to understand the genealogy of Jesus. But it also begins the process of giving a hint of how God is for all nations, because we will see how he uses a Gentile woman in this story. And he uses her to effect change for a family in the nation of Israel. Now, the book of Ruth is 4 chapters, and in the book, this true story is told. Now, during a terrible drought and famine in the land of Israel, people had to move to other places in order to find food. And there was a man named Elimelech who moved his wife Naomi and 2 sons to the land of Moab in order to find food. But shortly after moving there, Elimelech died. And Naomi and her 2 sons, they ended up, the sons, marrying 2 women named Orpah and Ruth that were Moabite women. But they stayed in the land of Moab. But after 10 years, both of the sons died, leaving Naomi and the 2 young widows without husbands to care for them. Naomi had heard that there was food now available back in Judah, her homeland. So she decided that she would move back home, and she took Orpah and Ruth with her. But as they began the journey, she realized she wasn't going to be able to provide for them or even give them a husband. Maybe it'd be better if they did stay back in their home. And she urged them, go home, go to your families. And Orpah ended up leaving after the women cried together. But Ruth begged Naomi, please let me stay with you. She said, where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. And if you die, I want to die where you die and be buried where you are buried. And Naomi realized that she could not persuade Ruth to go back, so she let her travel with her. Well, when they arrived in the land of Bethlehem, the women, when they saw Naomi, they said, could this be Naomi? And Naomi said to them, do not call me Naomi, because I left full, I came back empty. Call me Mara, for my life is bitter. Well, they arrived about the time of the barley harvest, and Ruth realized she needed to work to go get them food. And so she suggested to Naomi, let me go glean in the fields. And Naomi agreed. And so she went out and found a field, and she asked permission, and they let her glean. But unknown to her, she had chosen the land of Boaz. And Boaz was a kinsman redeemer, a family member of Naomi. And when Boaz arrived on the fields that day, he called out a blessing to his workers, and they blessed him back. And then he went to a lead worker, and he said, who is that woman over there gleaning in our field? And he said, oh, well, that's Ruth, the Moabite. She's who returned with Naomi, and she has been working hard all day. Well, Boaz went over and he greeted her with a blessing, and she fell down on the ground before him and said, how is it that you are paying attention to me, an immigrant, a foreigner in your land? And she blessed him back. And he told her, I want you to stay in my fields, and you can glean behind my servant girls. And he provided water for her. Well, later in the day at lunchtime, he offered her to come and eat with his workers and provided roasted grain for her. And he gave her so much that she was able to eat her fill, but still have grain to take back to Naomi. And then she went back to work. And he told his workers, when she follows along the servants, leave extra grain so that she is able to get grain. And he told them, do not touch her. Well, that night when Ruth went home, she told Naomi everything that happened, and that it was Boaz's field that she had gone to. And Naomi praised the Lord because he had placed her in the field of a family member that was a kinsman redeemer. And so Ruth stayed for the entire barley harvest, serving in the fields of Boaz. Well, Naomi realized she needed to find a husband for Ruth, and who would be better than Boaz, because obviously he was taking care of her. And so she said to Ruth, come here, the harvest is over and the celebration is taking place tonight. I want you to dress up, put your perfume on, and I want you to go out to where Boaz will end up falling asleep because he'll stay with the harvest tonight because he's been drinking and he needs to protect it. And I want you to lay at his feet, uncover his feet and cover yourself with it. And Boaz will tell you what to do. And Ruth did exactly as Naomi said. So when Boaz was done with the harvest and was out resting, she went quietly and knelt and laid down by his feet and uncovered his feet and covered herself. Well, Boaz woke up in the middle of the night and realized somebody was at his feet, and it was a woman. He said, "Who are you?" And she cried out, "It's me, Ruth. Would you please cover me and become my kinsman redeemer?" And Boaz was surprised. He's like, "Why? You show me such kindness. You have chosen me when you could have chosen a younger person." And he goes, "But there is one you need to know that is a closer kinsman. But I will go to him first thing in the morning. And if he chooses to marry you, then he will. But if he doesn't, I promise you, I will fulfill this and do this for you." And so in the early morning when it was still dark, so no one could see her leaving, he filled her coat up and tied it on her back and sent her back to Naomi with a coat full of grain. And when Ruth arrived at Naomi's house, she told her what happened. And Naomi said, we will wait because he will complete today what he has said, and we will wait and do what he tells us to do. Well, that morning, Boaz went to the city gates. And at the city gates, he gathered leaders together, the elders in the city, and he got the closest kinsman. He said, "Come here." And he said, the land needs to be redeemed. And you're the first in line for the land of Naomi. But he cleverly kept back that it included Ruth, the Moabite. And the man said, "Of course, I want to redeem the land. I will take it." And then Boaz said, "But if you do, you have to marry the Moabite and provide for her husband." And the man said, Nope, I can't do that." So he took off his sandal and he handed his sandal to Boaz. And Boaz lifted the sandal up and he said, "You have heard today that I have taken the land that belongs to Naomi's husband and her son's wife, Ruth, as my wife." And he ended up marrying Ruth. And God blessed them with a son. And the women in the village celebrated and praised God and told Naomi, "God has restored you. He has given you a family. He has given you a grandson. He has given you a daughter that's better than 7 sons. May all in Bethlehem bless you." And Boaz and Ruth named their son Obed. Now, what you need to know is Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of King David. And it is through King David's lineage that Jesus, the Messiah, is born. May God honor the telling of his word. As you were listening to today's story, what was it that blessed you the most? Can you see God at work in this story? And what do you learn about the people? It is so good to be in the Word, to be with Jesus, so that we can be transformed. Shalom, y'all.